Hey guys, welcome to a new YouTube video. I'm back with an interview and I have an author. His name is G. Russell, and we're going to be talking about our books today, and I'm really excited and I can't wait to get this started. So let's get right into it. So how are you doing today? Or tonight, I guess I should say.
Hey, Joanna, I'm doing great. It's good to meet you.
It's really good to meet you too. I'm really excited. So I guess I should start off by asking you, what do you write? What kind of genre do you write?
Well, I mainly write science fiction. I've had a I've had a science fiction trilogy in the works since I was in college, and I'm not saying how long ago that was, but
That's
life
awesome.
took different paths, and after quite a while, I'm finally getting back into it. But I write science fiction. I write fantasy. Um, I dabble a little bit with some ideas with some espionage and some thrillers, but
Oh, that's
mostly I
really
write
cool.
sci-fi.
Sci-fi is definitely not one of my strong points. I do not understand technology at all. I love Star Wars. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, but that's the extent of where my knowledge is Star Wars. And
Right.
so sci-fi is not necessary. I've been trying to write a few sci-fis, but that's my husband's genre. So if I usually go to him for help because I don't understand tech at all. But I really like, my main genre is fantasy. I like fantasy and I delve into fantasy sci-fi, so like space, but like magic, so that I can like do stuff that I understand more, because I write stuff more like Lord of the Rings. So um but yeah, sci-fi is definitely, I really admire sci-fi authors because I don't understand how to do it at all. So,
Well, I don't get real deep into the technology. I'd say I'm more of a space opera. In
oh
fact,
yeah.
I'm so space opera at the end of my books. A lady comes out in a spacesuit with horns on it and starts singing.
Uh,
Yeah, it's
I love that. That's great.
uh, yeah. So
Oh my
I do
gosh, that's
a
definitely
little
my favorite
technical.
type of sci-fi. Sorry, what?
I do a little bit of technical stuff, but most of it's just it's like the Star Wars, the Battlestar. You know, we don't get into
Mhm.
any kind of real orbital mechanics or flight kind of things because it's just unless you're really into that, you get bogged down. So it's a whole lot
Mhm.
nicer to just be able to say he flew down into the atmosphere and landed instead of he had a
The
deorbit
technical.
burn and blah 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 kind of thing. So
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So,
yeah.
so your book is called To Meet a Pixie. Why don't you tell me about it? Like, what's it about? Give me all the details.
Sure. So the pixie is a he's an assassin, and he's not really a pixie. He
Wow.
they call him the pixie because he comes and goes as he pleases and nobody sees him.
Ooh, I love that. That's really cool.
But he's pretty young. He started at a young age, and he's ready to retire. He wants to get out of the game. He's tired of killing people. He wants to live a normal, healthy lifestyle, settle down with and start raising little kids and or whatever, or at least that's what
Mhm.
he's thinking. He takes one last job to assassinate a queen, and so he comes into town, and things go from there.
Ooh, okay. That sounds really intriguing. I love that.
Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of a it. I think probably feel wise, it would be like Pirates of the Caribbean. It's kind of got
Ooh.
that a little touch of action, a little touch of romance, a little touch of just kind of it's anybody from young adult to adult, an old person like me who said that. Uh, can enjoy it. It's just kind of a lighthearted romp, not too, nothing graphic, nothing, just good action adventure, kind of stuff.
That's really cool. Those are the best kind.
Yeah.
Well, my book Assassin is the fourth book in a book series called the Valiant series, but I wrote them to where like the books are in a different order, so like you don't necessarily have to read them in order. It takes place on a world called Eos, and he's an assassin and has been since his childhood. And he was sold by his parents to an order who trains assassins and teaches them to basically be lethal killers. Right now he works for Aiden is his name, and he works for a king who basically he does jobs for. And the king's daughter is basically there's an assassination attempt on her life. So he goes after the assassins who are hunting her down and basically gets caught up in with protecting her. And he doesn't consider himself a babysitter. So at first he's kind of like not for it, but the story kind of progresses from there, and this unraveling the mystery behind who's after her, and the king specifically his ambitions for the four realms, and just kind of goes from there. So that's what my story is about.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I read your blurb, your book description. It sounds really interesting. So
thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get into those and do some reading on my own.
Thank you. I'm definitely gonna have to read yours too, because yours actually sounds like that kind of, because I love Pirates of the Caribbean, and I love, what you said about your book. It sounds so intriguing. So I'm really excited to hopefully get to read yours. So
awesome.
But yeah, the main thing about my books is that they all parallel with a Bible story. So sometimes they can get really dark, but that's because I really like, my passion is showing God's light in the midst of the darkness. So Assassin particularly can get a little graphic, but it's not, I wouldn't consider it too bad, but it's mostly for the purpose of telling the story. And Assassin, Aiden's story parallels with the story of Saul and Paul in the Bible. So, yeah, you can kind of get the gist from there. But the main themes are focusing on like forgiveness and letting go of like the mistakes that you've made and stuff like that. So that's kind of the themes and stuff of Assassin. So
that sounds really similar to mine too, because mine is Pixie's redemption story basically, and how he learns that he can be forgiven and contribute in a, I guess, more less lethal way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's reminds me of like one of the main questions that I know Aiden comes across toward the end of the book is like, how in the world can you make up for all this death and killing? And it doesn't seem like anything can. And that's when you apply it to real life. It's what I love about Jesus is that we don't have to, like, there's nothing that we can do to make up for our mistakes and stuff like that. Like, it's all about him and his grace and stuff like that. So that's something that I really love delving into as I write and everything. So
absolutely. Yeah, it's the greatest story ever told. So if we can kind of follow that, we're doing good.
Yeah, definitely. So what was it like for you writing an assassin-like character? How did you go about approaching the character and everything?
Yeah, it just kind of, it really was pretty easy to write. And it was kind of an exercise. I wanted to do something in first person. So yeah, I was always a fan of the old Magnum PI series.
Okay.
Tom Selleck would always talk to himself. I know what you're thinking, kind of a thing. So he's like breaking the fourth wall with his, with his thoughts going through his head. So it was kind of it was almost a writing exercise where I wanted to try something in first person. And so, yeah, it was just, what would he do if he was going to have to go into a town and infiltrate a castle and get to the queen and kind of, along those lines. So, and I knew all along I wanted to have a little bit of a, I call it stealth evangelism. I don't want to beat anybody over the head with religion or things, and I wanted to be something that the Christian readers could enjoy, but the non-Christian readers as well would just, so you just kind of had to think, well, what kind of world will this situation work in? And
I feel like that's a really hard balance for me, because I always try to write somewhere in between, the Christian audience that can enjoy it and yet reaching the non-Christians in a, like you said, I like how you worded it, that it's a stealthy way to try to like sneak that stuff in there. Because I know a lot of people, like, if they know that it's outwardly religious, they'll kind of like be like, no way, nope, not gonna read it, so it's like it's interesting to try to find that balance there. So
Yeah, it's really funny how it's okay to write about you know worshiping strange gods or different religious systems or anything except Christianity. When you bring Christianity to everybody's like, oh no.
Yeah, it seems like there's a big like taboo or something where people are like, if it's Christian, it's like, nope, but you can add in a zillion other gods or goddesses to your story and that's perfectly fine.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah.
And my character Pixie is actually, he's irreligious, because if he even admits to himself that there's a higher power, then his profession is probably going to be frowned on by that higher power. So
That's actually a really good way to approach it.
So he's just like, no, I don't think so, kind of,
I really like that.
But
That's a
so he
realistic way to approach
approaches.
the character, though.
Yeah, he approaches he's like, my parents would cut down a tree and put gold on the stump and worship to it while they're feeding the fire with the rest of the tree. He's like, that doesn't
Oh,
work.
wow. I like that. That's really cool.
But
I know with Aiden in particular, he ended up becoming really angry and bitter toward God because of his parents selling him and all of the harsh training that the order put him through. And so he kind of turned his back on God. And especially with his profession, like you said, it's not exactly easy to cope with if you're a religious person. And so he kind of just turned his back on God until recently when the princess Sevlia, actually, she believes, and she kind of ropes him into going to one of her little meetings that she likes going to, and he could just he's her bodyguard, so he has to tag along reluctantly. But it's kind of interesting the dynamic that becomes, because like that makes him start thinking about all these things that he's kind of pushed back since his childhood. So with writing an assassin character and writing Christian content and trying to keep it clean, how did you go about handling did you go into detail for any of the assassin jobs? How did you handle the writing that and keeping it clean and kind of just blending this all together to make a good book?
Right. So most of Pixie's jobs are they're alluded to in the beginning when he gets hired for this job. And it's very oblique. It's just referenced, yeah, when you the rumor you planted that brought down this dynasty and this person's untimely demise and that sort of thing. I guess if you violence wise, the sword fights were, they're pretty, they're not graphic, they're not blood gore kind of spattering type things. And then so we haven't had an on-screen assassination yet in the Pixie stories. It's all kind of building up. In fact, it's almost is he going to go through with it or not?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of building up some suspense about is he really going to follow through, or is he going to stay his hand and then worry about the repercussions later?
That's a really interesting thing to build up to. Like I would start nagging on me as I'm reading, trying to figure out, is he going to go through with it or is he not? I need to know.
Yeah.
That was really, really good. I know with me, Aiden was the kind of character that's like, he's still full in being an assassin and he's in his prime, of course. So there's that. And so there's several different on-screen assassinations, if you want to call it that, that take place. So I kind of had to handle, it was really hard for me to find a balance because I always ask myself, like, is this too dark? Is this going too far? How far is too far? And so but I always kind of had to like, okay, if you're going to do a redemption story, if you're going to show the Paul version of him, so to speak, then you have to show the Saul version, which means I'm going to have to show the kind of man he is before before God changes him and everything, which I think hopefully makes the transition and the forgiveness and the redemption arc, and the remorse and guilt that he feels later more impacting and more powerful. So, but I constantly have those nagging thoughts like, what if this is too far, But the action scenes, though, I did have a lot of fun with. There's one in particular where he's in a battle and he's supposed to assassinate the king or the leader of the other army. And so he's got to go through all this scenario with trying to get around these two armies that are battling each other and sneak in and somehow get to the command tent. And it's pretty good. It's one of the in battle sequences that I feel like is pretty good in the book. So
Yeah. I think those are really good for establishing that the character has some competence.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you've got, if your character is going to be an assassin, then your readers have to believe that he can actually do it, or he knows what he's doing.
I've questioned sometimes whether I made him to where it's like, oh, he can do everything, like, is he too good? And then I'm like, I gotta have him lose a few times. And so there's one time when I literally had a group of other assassins gang up on him because I needed him to at least lose one fight to show that, okay, he's still human. He's not just this superhuman guy who can do everything. And I also had trouble with Aiden getting a little arrogant sometimes. And I'm just like, let's tone this down a bit and not be so prideful, But trying to figure out, I don't want people to think, oh, really, he can do this and this and this. Like, so I had to I felt the need to implant some flaws inside of him so that it wasn't like he's perfect or something. So.
Yeah, that balance where it keeps them real and believable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm big on realism when I write, so I always try to like, what's the realistic thing? Like, you could go all Hollywood, flashy, the classic version of what they would do, but I'm always like, what would really happen in the circumstance? And for some reason, when I write what I want to read. So when I write, I love that when it keeps things realistic and not super ridiculous or unrealistic or just doing things because, the author wants it to be done that way. With me personally, I'm like really adamant about not doing that when I write. So I guess we need to wrap this up. So why don't you talk about where readers can find your book, if it's available? Is it available yet? Or, where can people go to find your book?
So yeah, shameless plug. Here's the cover. It's I'm exclusively on Amazon right now. Okay. I'm on Kindle Unlimited and in paperback on Amazon. So
that's awesome. I'll be putting a link in the description of this video. So if you want to buy his book, click the link in the description below. And I highly suggest you do it because it sounds good. And that's exactly what I'm going to do as soon as I get off here. So, and
I'll be reading Assassin.
That sounds good. That's awesome. I'm also on Amazon, and Assassin's available wide, so it's everywhere. Links will be in the description of the video for Assassin as well. So thanks, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please like and subscribe for more videos similar to this, and I hope that you really enjoyed it, and share it around with anybody that you may think enjoys books about assassins. So see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.